Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Growth Bites Lunch and Learn edition. Let me make a quick change here to my audio so that I don't have to wear the headset. And I hope that you're back to your job or your normal occupation full of energy, ready to tackle all the challenges that this week, this month, and the rest of the year are going to bring. Remember that we meet here every Tuesday at noon Eastern time for a half hour. And all we're trying to do is address some questions that you might have or things that could be helpful for you to continue unlocking your growth, to solve problems, to address or handle any issues that you might have. Today's questions are pretty interesting. As usual, I'm going to go through each one of them and see what happens first. Either we run out of time or we not run out of questions. I'm going to try to fit all of them into the half hour that we have together. I'll start from the top. The first question here is, I think it's a tough one to ask. Thank you for asking the question, whoever did that. By the way, in Slido, you can put your name in there so I can address you by name rather than just saying, hey, whoever you are. But thank you for the question. The question is, I believe my boss is incompetent. I have given her opportunities and the benefit of the doubt, and now I'm sure. So how do I handle it? Well, part of what I was going to say, you sort of already preempted, which is they're in that position for a reason. I haven't seen anybody who, regardless of their behavior, got there truly being incompetent. So there's always some reason. Oftentimes what happens is that it's probably over their head. It's because companies sometimes tend to promote people for the wrong reasons. So it's either because I'm just making it up, but they're super hard workers, very efficient, but they're terrible at developing people, or they're super efficient, super knowledgeable, super smart, but they're awful, human beings. So there's many reasons, and that could be one of them. But my advice to you would be, before you go into setting the person on fire, look at yourself in the mirror. Is there any bias or any filter that you have had in your past that could be coloring the way that you perceive the person? Maybe he or she is not all that incompetent. It's just how you two react together and you're not understanding each other. Maybe you just don't like what you're hearing. I'm not saying that's your case. I'm just saying in general, before going out there hammer and tongue and start labeling people, even your boss, try to understand if there's something else, because that's always, I think, a good exercise to do introspection. Let's say that this is indeed justified. Then my advice to you would be, don't fight it. So you're certainly in a situation that is not ideal. So never good to have a boss that you deem as incompetent. But the truth is, he or she is still your boss. She, again, from your phrasing of the question. So there's no point in trying to fight it or fight her, or just create an even worse environment on top of, let's say, her incompetence. And now on top of that, you alienate her, and now you're fighting, against her. So I would say that the first thing you probably need to do, as in the case that she is really incompetent, is, first of all, take care of yourself. What does that mean? Find a support group, find somebody to talk to vent with. And I'll probably vent is too harsh a word. Somebody to speak about the situation. I didn't mean vent, because certainly the worst thing that you can do is use the other person for support, who you went to as support, and use them for a griping session. The last thing that you can do, or that you should be doing, is just engaging in endless moaning and complaining as though you had no agency at all, right? By agency, I mean as though you cannot do anything. You can do something. You cannot change your boss. You can adopt your response to her incompetence, and that gives you agency. That gives you the ability to choose how you're going to react. So why don't you understand what the source of her incompetence is, and then try to be a complement for her? Is there any skill that she's particularly weak at? Let's say analytics. She's not good with numbers, and maybe you are. So can you offer to give her a hand with taking a look at numbers before? Can you give her a hand in interpreting a report, or in deciphering what a result, a financial result might mean, or some other quantitative indicator. Or if she's not good communicating, can you draft a memo for her? Can you draft the mail for her? Can you create a presentation that'll better encapsulate what your project really means, what the implications are, and that will help her present. And that way you become more of an ally, which I think is a far better position to be in versus an antagonist. So you can help her. You can also volunteer to do more things, become somewhat more visible by offering yourself to take on more things that you believe she cannot handle. And maybe she should be able to handle them. But the reality is, if you're complaining and you're saying she's incompetent and you've given her the benefit of the doubt, then it means, she can't. So offer to take on some of those extra, tasks that she cannot handle. Avoid, like I said before, trying to set her on fire. Don't walk around the hallways bad-mouthing her. Do not give in to your impulses. I know it's frustrating. Believe me, I've had in my career at least a couple of bosses who were really bad experiences. But using your energy to just vent and scream and moan and bang your head against the wall won't really help you. You should be using it constructively. And the last thing I'm going to say is that it's a reality. You need to face it. I would, again, advise that you find a way to make yourself the strengths that she lacks, and lean into the good things in your day-to-day, right? Because I'm pretty sure your life is not all miserable. I mean, it's a pretty nasty thing to have a boss that is not good, or that's just flat out incompetent. But it's not all in your life, not all in your work life is that bad, or I hope it's not. There's got to be something that you do enjoy from coming to work. It could be just reading and getting ready for that meeting about this lunch that you're participating in, or about this analysis you're preparing, or about this event that you're going to have with your team. There's endless possibilities for what could be great in your life. Lean into those, focus on those. If you focus on those, then your energy is going to be in a far better place. And despite the fact that you do need to invest some of that energy into your relationship and supplementing what your boss cannot do, then you can at least get some energy, get some wind into your sails from the things that you do like. Okay. You know where to find me at the end of the conversation. I'll share again my socials, but you can find me right here on LinkedIn. Drop a question if there's still a need for us to elaborate on that, or maybe we could even jump into a quick chat or a quick call if it's necessary. Let's go to the next question. How can I make the most of having a mentor? Well, first of all, congratulations. Having a mentor is fantastic and is one of the best things that could happen to you or to anybody. In my career, I know that a big part of my growth I owe to my mentors. They were great, and that's what I want to share with you. So to this question of how do you make the most out of having a mentor? Well, mentors are people who have more experience or deeper perspective than you in some regard or other. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're older than you. It doesn't even necessarily mean that they're super senior compared to you. They have just more depth and experience in general in things that could be useful to you. So you should be selective with your mentors. They always should be somebody who can add to your experience and who can enrich you. So they can normally offer, at least in my experience, my mentors always offered political influence in the office, right? They had reputation, they had a good network, they had always good advice for how to approach thorny situations. And one of the best things is that you need to, if you have the conversations in a way that's clear, that's candid, that you really go deep into what the issues are, they can help you plan for things. I know that they were useful for me to borrow their credibility, their network, their political network. And when I say political, don't take it as a bad word. It's a fact of life in a human environment, that there's always going to be politics, quote unquote. It's just part of the human interaction. And your mentors can be great at pre-wiring connections for you. Assume that you have a difficult conversation with your boss coming up. A mentor is great to help you prepare. So you can create a little bit of a script, a series of data points that you're going to have to take to that conversation. Remember, my advice there has always been, if you're going to go to a difficult conversation with your boss, make sure that you're data rich and you're not just driven by feelings. So you can take that script to your mentor and you can go through it. You can go over it. You can even rehearse it. And he or she can play devil's advocate, and they can give you feedback and advice as to whether there's anything else that you need to point out, or if there's any different positioning that would be more suitable to your conversation. You can also record sessions where you document a session with your boss. Let's say that you get together with your boss and he or she asks you to do something, take on a project. And as you should, you are clarifying what exactly you're hearing and saying, okay, this is what I'm hearing you ask me. Is this correct? Is this what you need me to do? This is kind of how I want to approach it. You can bounce that off of your mentor as well. So you can document the conversation, take notes of your discussion with your boss, of that request that you got, and you can go over it together with your mentor. And then he or she can help you find whether there's any additional depth in the question or in the request, or anything on top of what you were already thinking to offer that you could also add to your response to the product that you come up with as a result of the request. If there's a question that you have in terms of how to have a conversation that'll impact the direction of your career, then a mentor is a fantastic sparring partner for that conversation, right? So you could point out what your arguments are. You could even elucidate on your argument. And they can tell you whether it's a sufficiently solid, robust argument, or whether there's any points in there that could bear some strengthening, some enriching. So that's the usefulness of mentors. And I think that the most useful thing is also to have them give you feedback. They're not directly invested in you as your supervisor. This should not be your supervisor. So that when you ask them for feedback and you say, where can I improve my executive presence? How can I better communicate? Am I succinct enough? They can give you feedback. That's uninterested. That's very clear. And they can definitely get you ready for the senior ranks before you're appointed, right? Before you're promoted, which is how it works. You're going to be promoted when the powers that be, management, deem you ready to do, at the very least, that next level that you're aspiring to. So a mentor can help you understand what that looks like. What should you be behaving like today that'll prove in the eyes of the relevant people that you're ready for that promotion. So mentors are fantastic for all of this. And then finally, even if you decide that your current job is not your best option, and that you might be openly hearing calls from headhunters or from other companies that are trying to poach you. I mean, it happens. Mentors can be a great resource for that too. How do you handle that? When do you talk to your boss about it and come clean about the fact that you're in this type of conversation? How to best prepare for those interviews. They can also help for that. They can help you obviously for interviews that have to do with internal postings. That'll give you an excellent growth opportunity. So those, I think, are some of the benefits of having mentors, and just the general sharpening of all of those skills that you're going to need to grow. Thank you for the question. I liked it. And before I move on, I just wanted to say I like it in particular because I really believe that some of the things that were hard for me were things that my mentors helped me with. Right. So some of the conversations that I had, even with some of my difficult managers, I just mentioned a while ago that I had two that were pretty terrible. My mentor at the time, for each one of them, was really, really instrumental in me getting a grip on the situation, on doing some of the things that I recommended earlier, like focusing on things that are helpful and not things that are bad for your mental health and that will create an enemy out of your boss, right? So fantastic. I really hope that everybody goes and actively looks for a mentor if you don't already have one, or if there's no program in your company that formally assigns you with mentors. You should be looking at the list of stakeholders, people around you, and try to get one. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, finance tells me I can't spend because my contribution margin is negative, but I know the price exceeds the cost of the product, meaning it's profitable. It's profitable, the product. Why should I care? Listen, you know that I'm a CFO at heart, right? That's what I used to do in my previous life. And I think that if your contribution margin is really negative, your finance business partner is truly being your partner. He's helping you, or she is pulling you back from the cliff. Why? Contribution margin is your price minus variable costs. So in other words, if you're looking whether the remainder of taking out the variable costs, packaging materials, and or things that flow with volume, excuse me, what remains should be enough for covering costs that are fixed. Pardon my voice, and give me a second while I quickly mute here. So your revenue should be enough to cover costs that are fixed. Think utilities, think rent, think payroll, think depreciation, things like this. So when your finance business partner is telling you that the contribution margin is negative, it means because once you subtract those costs that are variable, like we said, they flow with volume. So it could be transportation of the product, or the raw materials that are needed to produce that, or the packaging materials that are needed for the product. You take that out, what's remaining is not enough to cover rent, utilities, payroll, etc. Meaning that you're actually losing money every time that you sell something, and you need to improve your margin, your gross margin, which is what you're referring to. If you take your price 100, you subtract your cost 70, your gross margin is 30. So it's one minus the other. And that should probably be 40 or 50, so that when you subtract the costs that are variable in the rest of the spend, it'll cover those fixed expenses. And actually that applies to your cost, right? So it's really your sales price has got to cover those things in your costs that are variable, materials and packaging and inbound delivery and things like this. And then what's remaining should be enough to cover those fixed expenses like utilities, like salaries or wages in this case, depreciation, et cetera, et cetera. That's part of your cost. The revenues minus the cost gives you the gross margin. And the same thing happens all over again with your expenses, right? So there are expenses that are fixed, salaries for people in the office, in the sales, in the field, right? For sales or in marketing, you name it. And fixed costs, and variable costs that could be advertising or some other expenses that you can definitely control or could flow with volume. And if you're not covering your fixed costs, then you're losing money. So if I were you, I would give her a call or him a call, your finance business partner, and thank him or her and work together on identifying a profit improvement plan. How are you going to pull what lever, what knobs are you going to turn so that you become profitable, so you can cover variable and fixed expenses and be profitable? That's the trick. So thanks for the question. That was a good question. And again, I think that your finance business partner is probably doing a good job if they're trying to rein in your spending, because that will only make it worse if you continue to write checks. Okay, let's move to the next question. People in my office know me, so why should I still need to go around promoting my personal brand? I'm a low profile type and tend to be an introvert. So I think we've touched this on different sessions of Growth Bites. And you want to make your personal brand the best that it can be. Why? Because you will always have a personal brand, good or bad. There's no way you can avoid that. There's always going to be something that is evoked when people mention your name. So it's got to be a good one. That's why you need to promote your brand, because I'm sure that even if you're an introvert and you're super shy and you're the quiet type and the low profile type who doesn't want to boast, there are great things that you're doing. There are great capabilities that you bring to the table. There's a bunch of things that you can say to add value to the company. And you need to toot your own horn about them. You need to make sure that people know that that's who you are. You're not boasting. You're not showing off. You're not bragging. You're simply shining a light on the things that you do and you do well. So absolutely, you should be promoting your personal brand, even if you're the quiet type. Part of your brand could be he or she is reserved and doesn't talk too much, but boy, when she talks, or man, when he speaks, they add value. That's what you need to focus on, is everything you say adds value. You're a person who's, a person of few words, a man or woman of few words. It's all fine. I think you need to just not conflate promoting your personal brand in creating and caring for it and making sure that it's burnished and nice and shiny, and changing who you are. If you're an introvert and a shy person, that's fine. It's perfect. That's who you are. You be you. But I'm sure you're doing great things. Keep on doing them and make sure that people know that you're doing them and why you're the best at doing that. That's why you need to continue to do it. And that's why you should. If you choose to not promote your personal brand and just to clam up and be retracted and very, very quiet in the corner of the room, then that's your brand. You still have a brand. Your brand is going to be he or she is afraid to speak. They will like to be microscopic. They never contribute. I need to pull things out of him or her. And I wish I didn't, because they are quite valuable for the topic at hand. So anyway, enough said. Thank you for the question, because I think that this is far more common than people realize. We have 3 minutes, 2 minutes and a half. So let's go for the next one. How can I make myself known to my boss's boss without jumping over him? Well, yeah, great question. First, obviously, you just mentioned it. Make sure that you're not sidestepping or bypassing your boss. to talk to his or her boss. I think it's a great move. Think about it. The boss of your boss, so your boss's boss, your boss's supervisor, has a wider field of vision, certainly than yourself, and knows even more things that are coming down the pike than your boss himself or herself. So it makes all the sense in the world that you would want to get in front of the person, make yourself visible, make yourself known. You should be taking every opportunity to show your mettle, to show your worth, to impress him or her with the value that you can bring. So again, provided that you've aligned with your boss and you've gotten the okay to reach out to his or her supervisor, then there's a number of things that you could do. Example, you could go to a meeting. So offer yourself up for projects, for things that are challenging, that are visible. That's one way. Another way could be you go to meetings where there's more people, more organizations than just yours, and you offer to write the minutes and to send those minutes out. And you ask everybody, could I copy your boss and your boss and your boss and your boss? And you ask your boss, hey, could I copy him or her above you? And I mean, I don't see that this is problematic, right? People actually would thank you for taking on that job that's sometimes a little bit of a drudgery. And your name's now on a report that person is going to see. Understand what her expertise is and try to ask questions in that space. Try to get information about the things that she thinks about, and you could strike a conversation. You could ask for a quick meeting to introduce yourself. There's many ways. Always make sure that you're aligned with your boss and that he or she blesses that interaction, so that so that he or she doesn't feel like you're jumping over them and getting at their boss, and that could be a bad look for you. Okay, my friends. So it's we're at the bottom of the hour, so it's time to adjourn. I presume you have meetings to go to, things to complete, and I really enjoy and I'm thankful for the time that you spend with me. As always, the video will be here on LinkedIn, and I will clean it up a little bit more and publish it on my YouTube channel, which you can find there on YouTube at VSharp-BeSmart. You will see my socials here. And so make sure that you reach out, follow me, and we can keep up the conversation. Keep your eyes open for next week. There's going to be another invite, and there's going to be another Slido for you to submit your questions. So with that, have a fantastic rest of the week, and I will see you next Tuesday.